Have you ever wondered why a breakup actually, physically hurts? I mean, for decades, we've blamed it on rejection, right? Or losing companionship, or just really missing the person we loved. But what if the science points to something way deeper and, honestly, kind of strange? What if the intense emotional distress of a breakup isn't just about losing your ex, but about literally losing your own mind's understanding of who you are? Today, we're decoding a really fascinating peer-reviewed paper from the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. It's called Who Am I Without You? And it absolutely radically changes how we view heartbreak. All right, let's just dive right into this.
Okay, we gotta start with that totally classic line from the 1996 movie Jerry Maguire. You know the one. You complete me. It's incredibly romantic, right? And the researchers actually cite this exact pop culture moment in their paper to explain how we view love. Because when we fall for someone, we don't just hang out with them. They fundamentally alter who we are. They complete the puzzle. But here's the catch. This beautiful cinematic sentiment actually sets up a pretty dangerous psychological trap. Because, well, in the imperfect real world, off-screen, relationships end. And when they do, you're suddenly smacked with this brutal reality. What happens to the now incomplete self? I mean, if someone else completed you, and now they're just gone, what exactly is left behind? That's the core mystery we're unpacking today. We're going to look at how a breakup literally dismantles your identity, and way more importantly, how understanding the science behind this can actually help you put it all back together. The intertwined self, or cognitive interdependence. To really understand the pain of the end, we first have to look at the psychology of the beginning. How exactly does another person get so tangled up inside your head? So, scientists call this cognitive interdependence. When you fall in love and get super committed, your actual self-concept, like your internal definition of me, starts to overlap with your partner's. You start spontaneously using pronouns like we and us instead of I and me. You share friends, you share hobbies, future plans, the whole shebang. The lines between you and I literally blur in your brain. Research even shows that people in love actually have a harder time distinguishing which personality traits belong to them and which belong to their partner. You essentially morph into this merged entity. So that's the beautiful, intertwined romance of it all. But when it's over, that cognitive merger is violently severed. Which brings us to 3 types of loss and damage to the self. The researchers basically identified 3 distinct types of identity damage that happen during a breakup. Number 1 is content change. This is the classic post-breakup haircut or dropping a hobby you only ever did with your ex. The actual pieces of your identity change. Number 2 is constriction. And this one's wild. People actually feel like their self has physically shrunk and become smaller after a breakup. And number 3, the absolutely critical one, reduced clarity. Just a profound, measurable confusion about who you even are anymore. Now, check out this flowchart because it brilliantly illustrates their core hypothesis. It's a direct pipeline. Usually we think a romantic breakup leads directly to emotional distress, right? A causes B. But the researchers propose there's this hidden middle step. The breakup actually causes self-concept change, that identity damage we just talked about. And it's that identity damage that triggers the severe emotional distress. You aren't just crying over them, you're crying because your internal compass is spinning completely out of control. To prove this, they zoomed in heavily on that 3rd type of damage, reduced clarity. So let's define self-concept clarity scientifically. It is the extent to which your beliefs about yourself are held with absolute certainty, internal consistency, and stability over time. Basically, when clarity is high, you're grounded. You know your vibe. When clarity drops, you experience some intense psychological turbulence. Let's move on and see how this actually plays out in the real world. Real-world evidence through internet diaries. Because look, a lab environment can only tell us so much, right? To see if this identity loss actually happened to people out in the messy real world, researchers turned to naturalistic data. They actually went onto the internet and analyzed 76 real public internet diaries and blogs. They looked at the diary entries themselves, and they also looked at the About Me profile sections where users describe themselves. They gathered the About Me profile sections from bloggers who had recently been dumped and compared them against a control group of people experiencing no major life changes. They were looking for self-concept constriction, the physical loss of self-aspects previously defined by the relationship. This bar chart shows the number of non-redundant terms people use to describe themselves. The breakup group used significantly fewer distinct words than the control group.
When the ex-partner took the shared activities, social circles, and routines with them, the person left behind was measurably smaller. They used fewer descriptors to define who they were.
The breakup victim's sense of self didn't just change, it shrank. I mean, this is literal statistical proof of self-concept constriction. When you lose the person who completed you, your very vocabulary for who you are literally dries up.
The root of breakup pain explored through a longitudinal study. So we know the self shrinks, and we know confusion sets in. But does this confusion actually cause the pain? Well, to definitively prove this, the researchers conducted a massive third study. They tracked 69 college freshmen over 6 full months. Now think back to your freshman year of college. It's already a time of massive identity formation, right? Every 2 weeks, for 6 months, the researchers surveyed these students, tracking their relationship status, their emotional distress, and their self-concept clarity. And over the course of the study, 26 of these students experienced a breakup. Now check out the stark contrast between these two trajectories. Look at that solid line. That represents the students whose relationships stayed intact. As they progress through college, their clarity steadily goes up. They're figuring out who they are, which makes total sense. But look at the dashed line. That's the students who broke up. Right at week 6, which was the modal breakup time, their clarity just plummets. They literally fall off an identity cliff. And for weeks afterward, it stays flat and confused, completely deviating from the normal growth of their peers. The researchers then ran these complex meditational analyses on the data to find the ultimate truth. And the crucial takeaway is this. The data proved that the loss of self-concept clarity uniquely predicts and mediates post-breakup emotional distress. Okay, what does that actually mean in plain English? It means a massive portion of the sheer agony you feel after a breakup isn't just you missing your ex's jokes or their smile or whatever. The pain is literally the agonizing psychological friction of waking up and not knowing who I am without us.
Which brings us to rebuilding identity, the cure to the pain. Now, I know that sounds terrifying, but honestly, it's incredibly empowering. Because if the root of the pain is a loss of identity, then the cure isn't getting them back. The cure is getting you back.
So, based on the science, here is how you heal. First, you've got to acknowledge that your pain is normal. It's rooted in structural self-confusion, not just a broken heart. Second, you have to actively do the work to redefine the I without the you. Go get that crazy haircut. Try that new hobby. And finally, embrace this self-concept change not as a loss, but as a totally necessary, healthy restructuring. You're basically shedding an old psychological skin that just doesn't fit anymore. You're no longer part of a we. That cognitive interdependence has been broken. And yeah, it's confusing, it's scary, and for sure, it physically hurts. But you know what else it is? It's a blank canvas. So I'm going to leave you with this. Who are you without them? Maybe it's time to find out.